Mm-hmm.
So, when Saturn's with Venus, he tends to slow down Venus things, which may or may not be an avoidant. It could be that, sometimes there are actually some things that are out of our control. Not everything that happens in our life is.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, what I mean? It's not, I don't know if I go along with that philosophy, that, life consists of me and my ideas. Everything in my life is a reflection of me. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm not, I'm still on the fence about that one, because I know that there's a such thing as an objective reality, and there are things that are definitely out of our control,
Oh,
and
yeah.
that includes timing.
Yeah.
So, this person may be thinking, what is wrong with me? Why can't I get into a relationship? This may be thinking this.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the case, you're just a late bloomer. Just give yourself time and continue your self-understanding and growth. And sure enough, the universe will bring somebody into your life so that you can find out how far you've come.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And, I've had a few charts, like I said, I've had a few charts that I've looked at with Saturn and Venus, and that has definitely created an anxious attachment style, because they were looking externally for validation, right? But at the same time, I could see how Saturn would it could have created an avoidant attachment style if Saturn was being aspected by its enemies. Right here, this Saturn is being aspected by Venus, it's being aspected by Mercury, and it's being aspected by Jupiter. Venus and Mercury are friends to Saturn. Jupiter is a neutral to Saturn. So these planets are helping strengthen this person's Saturn, which can go a long way in how we're feeling about dealing with problems, how we're feeling about wanting to confront the challenges that we have in our life.
It also represents a type of intelligence, because it's the third house lord.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the ability to take complicated things and break them down into understandable, understanding them more clearly and more simply. And I don't know if I should bring this up right now or not, but I always like to look and see, like, the planet that represents the mother and the father, because so much of our attachment style comes from our relationships with our parents. And Saturn is the mother. So, the relationship with the mother and working your way through that too can hold some keys, some important keys to the relationships.
Right.
And look who the father is. It's Mars.
With Rahu. With Rahu.
Rahu. So yeah, maybe there's a need for some emotional healing. I think
or just
therapy is awesome.
The father might.
Everybody should do a therapy.
Yeah.
Don't you?
We can't help it. We're conditioned. I mean, we come in with our whole cultural conditioning. It's not just our parents. And, one of the things that I do think, so when we're looking at the Pitrukaraka and the Putrakaraka, I do think that it's important to look at it in the 12th divisional chart as well, because that's our ancestors, and that has to do specifically with our inherited family stuff. And when we're looking at these things, it may not specifically always be from the mother or the father. It may be ancestral. With what we're finding out with science and how our DNA contains memories of everyone that we come down, that have been in our families, we don't understand what that means. We understand it on a scientific level. We don't understand it on a karmic level, on a energetic level, on a frequency level. So this is a really big subject of interest to me, which is our ancestral or possible ancestral karma. And when we look at the Dwadasamsha, where the 12th, we're looking at some of that.
Yeah, totally. That's like a whole nother area of study that will be fascinating to do. But anyway, so for now, what do you think? We go on to the next one?
Yeah, that sounds exciting.
Audrey, and I'll tell you after we talk about it what she thinks she is. Now, I don't know if she thinks this because she took tests or just based on what she's read and heard so far.
Okay, so I see a couple things here which stand out.
Yeah.
You can see Mars and Saturn in the first house, but this
Right.
Saturn is doing a lot differently than the last Saturn. The Saturn is in an enemy's dignity because it doesn't really like being in Mars's sign, and it's with a really strong Mars. So this Saturn is a little more beat up, I'd say. So this person may have a tendency to not want to confront things head on. You know, when I see Saturn getting impacted strongly, I have a sense that person is less, they are more sensitive to the burdens of what it takes to work through things. They're more sensitive on that Saturn level, and so they're less naturally going to jump head on into any challenges to a certain degree with that Saturn. Now Mars there may make this person really capable of handling problems and being able to get it, deal with emergency situations, but Saturn and Mars sort of beat each other up. So there's a delaying factor to that Mars, and Mars is telling Saturn, just don't, just, try to stay away from.
Though Mars is stronger than Saturn, so Mars can overcome Saturn, but there could be some physical issues too with this that will Mars with Saturn can cause problems with the muscles, and people with fibromyalgia have this kind of thing.
Yeah, I was going to say
levels, energy levels can be a challenge, and relationships take a lot of energy, and so it might be the person may need to withdraw frequently to recharge their batteries, and that can come off definitely as avoidant if it isn't actually avoidant. But I think that makes sense, and it's aspecting the moon too.
It's aspecting their moon, and Jupiter is not able to really help as much because Jupiter is not as strong in this chart. It doesn't really like being in Saturn's sign. When Jupiter goes into Saturn's sign, it sort of makes that person more of seeing what could possibly go wrong, what the problem could be really quickly. So this person might be thinking, this person might be thinking like, oh, why bother? This and this and this is going to go wrong. That could never work. Or they might they might look at things. Saturn looks down. You were talking about earlier, Saturn. Yeah. Saturn, these visionary planets, the Sun and Mars and Jupiter, they like to look up, but Saturn looks down. It looks at all the cracks, all the problems.
Everything. Yeah.
So this person could work with understanding that they may need some time to rest and relax more, and they also may have a tendency towards looking at problems, looking at what could possibly go wrong. And they could work on trying to integrate more positive perspectives. Yeah,
and I also want to mention Byron Katie again, because that will relieve a tremendous amount of the suffering that comes with Mars and Saturn together. So that means how you think about things. It can just really relieve you like instantly in a moment and bring you to peace.
Yeah.
And then there's one other major thing.
Yeah. Venus and the Sun.
No, not Venus and the Sun. I'm talking about the Moon-Venus opposition.
The Moon-Venus opposition, with Venus being in the Moon sign.
Yeah.
And, but I think the Venus-Sun comes into play as well here too, because Venus and the Sun starve each other, and the Sun is stronger than Venus in this sign. So we've got the Moon-Venus opposition making the person more sensitive in relationships, more maybe wanting to get their moon needs met through another person.
Emotional needs. The Moon's job is to get our emotional needs met. Whereas Venus's job is to make sure that the relationship, both people in the relationship, there's an even exchange of energy. And it's really hard to do that with this when you have Moon-Venus opposition. It does require a lot of self-awareness and understanding. It takes time to get there, and also can make you overly sensitive.
Yeah.
where somebody will say something, or they'll look at you a particular way, or an expression on their face, and and so what happens if you do that frequently, if you're easily hurt, then the person will stop being authentic with you, and they'll start tiptoeing on eggshells around you, and then sooner or later there's well, they may leave, or there'll be a blow up of some kind or something like that. And so this one's not an easy one. In this combination here, I always think that the person needs to gift themselves with a therapist, somebody who will pay attention just to them for at least once a week for an hour, and get some of those needs met, because this means that they either didn't get it when they were little, or somehow they just weren't able to, they didn't, I don't know. I think it usually comes from what happens when you're small. Like your parents could be very busy people, going through a difficult time. Who knows what it is? It hardly matters. What matters is giving yourself what you need, and not try to get it all from your relationship.
Yeah, I see that the NVC, the nonviolent communication concept, working really well with the Moon Venus aspect, because it really tunes the person into the strategies of why they're trying to get that need met, what that need is about, what those feelings are about, and how to identify the strategies they're using to try to get that need met. Because their strategy is going to be, hurting their Venus, because that moon is starving Venus. So they would benefit from more understanding of that, so they could identify how to change their strategies.
Yeah, and in the attachment theory language, they call that protest behaviors. Right?
Protest behavior.
Yeah.
And I think it's important with the Sun and Venus too, because I have noticed this in some regards, because the Sun is going to be our own purpose, our own inspiration, what's important to us. And when it starves Venus, Venus gets put on the back burner. We're less, we're less diplomatic in the sense of wanting to balance out that time between self-inspiration and the inspiration to be in relationship. And so that Venus also gets starved or agitated by the Sun and starved by the Moon. So one of the things this person could be working on is strengthening that Venus.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And I noticed too that they're both in the nakshatra of Pushya. Maybe saying wrong, but that tells me that they're probably a very nurturing person, but at their own expense. Because this Moon Venus opposition too can go the other way, and that is where they're always in the giving position and never in the receiving position. It's not always, the way that you would think it would go. I've seen this a lot. Frustrating.
With the Mars Saturn in the first house too, they're really going to push themselves. There's going to be a lot of inner tension to always do better, always work harder, that kind of thing. And with Rahu in the 8th, there's an element of trust that comes involved here. So that person is working on learning how to involve themselves in relationships where they can work on trust and receive. There's an element of receiving that this person is working on. So I would say this chart is potentially someone who might tend more towards the avoidant style. But they as well are going to have the potential for things to open up for them. Jupiter's in their first house right now as it's been transiting.
Yes.
Yeah. And there is an aspect from Saturn on their moon. So they are going through the Sadhisati period. But Saturn is in a really good dignity while it's going through the sign of Capricorn. So the Saturn is going to bring a benefic outcome.
Let me see something really quickly here. I like to look at the Ashtaka Varga. Oh yeah, she's got 5 points there. So that means that the Saudi-Saturn period with the Saturn right on the moon is not as difficult as you would expect during the Saudi-Saturn period. It's really more when Saturn was in Sagittarius. That was much harder.
Yeah. Well, you can also see before you switch the screen, if we look at the Sarva table, if we look at the table, on the bottom right-hand corner of the Sarva table, and we look at where Jupiter is. So Jupiter right now is in the sign of Sagittarius, and we can look at the total points.
Well, it's in Scorpio right now.
Oh, it's in Scorpio, right. It's in Scorpio, so that's 6 points. As it goes through Sagittarius, it might not lend itself out with as many strong points.
Yeah.
But then when it goes into Capricorn, it's going to get a lot stronger. So Jupiter is really going to, even though it's going to be in Capricorn and Saturn sign, when she has her Jupiter return and Jupiter comes up on her moon and Jupiter comes into that sign, I think that's going to lend itself towards a lot of positive things as it gets better in that.
Yeah, well, isn't Jupiter also the planet of, it's the planet of understanding. Knowledge.
It's the planet, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And forgiveness, that means self-forgiveness too. So she did say that she thought she was the avoidant style.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah. So there we go. So
that's a strong potential. Mm-hmm.
Can't see it. Now, Hieramakaraka is Venus.
Mm-hmm.
Here it's with the Sun, aspected by Mars and Saturn. I'm curious what she does for a living. I would say she can do really difficult things.
And that Venus is in Pisces in the Navamsha. So that Venus, is actually a strong Venus. In the area of relationships, there is a Saturn aspecting it.
Yeah. And the moon again.
The moon is still involved with it. So there is still that process.
And it is too. Look in the Sapsamsha, Venus.
Yeah.
Saturn again.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. So there's definitely some ancestral stuff going on here.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be for it to keep showing up like that. You should say?
Yeah, and I mean, I would say to this person to maybe do some research and study a little bit more about the avoidant the avoidant attachment style, because that could probably give them a lot of insight into why they're triggered by certain things and why maybe they just don't feel like putting as much effort into the relationship sometimes. But that they probably do want the relationship. That's probably something that this person does want, and that they can have it. It's just it's just a matter of working on that Moon Venus aspect and bringing some more attention.
Right? What is Venus going to want?
Yeah, she is Venus.
So why don't we finish up with this one then, and then we'll just continue on Wednesday.
Okay.
Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, as I was saying, Mom has had a strong influence here, and maybe things were a bit strict. Perhaps she may not have had much freedom, and so being in a relationship could feel too much at times like it's going to take away her freedom and her ability to do the things that she wants to do when she wants to do them to some extent. And that can really, I can see that being a big part of the avoidant thing.
Right.
It's just easier just to avoid the whole thing than to negotiate all of that.
And it's important to know that just because you have a Mars Saturn isn't going to make you an avoidant, or just because you have Venus Sun, or just because you have Venus Moon. What we're seeing here is a combination of multiple things. We're seeing how they layer upon each other. We're seeing how each thing might present itself in the chart. And, what I've really stand by is that the reason why we have some challenges in our lives is to evolve and grow. It's not just, oh no, you're fated to have these challenges here. No, we get to bring these things up in our consciousness. We get to learn and we get to work on these things. It's showing what we're here to do. We're here to work on it. Yeah. We don't get to it in this time around, so I'm sure we'll have another one.
That's true. And, that just brings up, too, what it means when the Atmakaraka, the self-producer planet's in the sign of Pisces here in the Navamsha. Yes. A lot of relationships are going to be finishing up karmas with people from previous lifetimes. Mm-hmm. So your relationships may end more, sooner than you would expect, but it doesn't necessarily mean anything bad. You know, it's just
Right.
you're in the end of a cycle of lifetimes, is what you're
Yeah.
in. It's end cycle. And so,
And
yeah,
and the charts that we get, the moment that we choose to take our first breath, to be born, is exactly perfect for what we need in this lifetime. There really is no bad and good. There really is no this is better and this is worse. There's things that we may feel
yeah,
are more challenging or heavier, but we're doing exactly what we're supposed to be doing in this lifetime as far as our personal growth and our evolution and our contribution to the collective, what humanity is working on. So there really is no judgment in this is bad and this is good. We're just looking at it in the context of how this might create an attachment style.
yeah. And of course, there's always way more to say. She's towards this end period of the Rahu period.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
Rahu is never, almost never an easy time period. Though it can bring amazing things into your life. I mean, depending on the Lord. And in her case, it's Mercury's in a great friend sign, so it probably brought some good things into her life too, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, it's just not an easy time period. You feel as if you have absolutely no control over anything in your life, and you pretty much don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm sure it's been a time of lots and lots of growth and evolution.
Yeah.
You know, I have a theory. I want to tell you my theory here by the end of this. When I see charts where there are a lot of challenges, I instantly think of the video games that my daughter used to play. And that is the point of the video game was to get from one level to the next level without dying, right? And if you die, then you go back to the level you were at before until you get through it, right? And you get through it quicker this time because your lessons or whatever, the tasks you have to perform to get to the next level. And so, but the higher up you go, the higher and higher you go, the harder and harder it gets, the bigger the challenges are.
Right.
And I think that it's like a perfect metaphor for reincarnation and what, you know, our chances to keep coming back. And if we come back to the same level, we just get through our lessons a lot more quickly and we make advances. And so when I see a chart where I see that there's a lot of challenges, I think this is probably a person who has set the bar for themselves higher and higher because they've done all the other stuff already. It's like, okay, this, otherwise, what's the point of it, right? There are some lifetimes where you can coast, true. But most of the time, we always need to be growing because that's our nature. We feel better when we're growing. That's my theory. I can't prove it, but that's what it seems to me.
Yeah, and that's the interesting piece is that, you know, we cannot prove any of what we're trying to discover, but after doing so many charts and seeing how challenging these aspects look on the chart, but also seeing the strength of spirit in people. And even if you see a challenging chart, these are we're still wonderful people, lovable, you know, caring people. This is not the sign of that someone's not a worthy person or someone is bad in their life. This is a sign of we have more of a challenge to work through some of these things because we're strong enough to do that.
Exactly. Yeah, you can see this person's quite strong. Yeah, so this was Audrey. Thank you for sharing your birth data with us and letting us talk about you.
And it's really great
knowing you.
It's really great to know that what this person tested out as.
Yeah, it's very helpful. Yeah, it's very helpful. Because the more we can know about this, the better we can provide counsel to our clients.
Mm-hmm.
Something that really, really useful stuff, you know, useful here on the planet now. Not for your next life, but for this one. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing for now. And we're going to continue next week, and we'll do a couple more charts and a couple more charts until we've gotten through all of them. Maybe if you can, those of you who sent me your birth data, if you could go to yourpersonality.net, take the surveys and find out where you are on the scale, I guess, of I've noticed something about the literature is that they use different terms. It's not always secure, avoidant, and anxious. They use other things too.
They do. Like in the Wired for Dating book, they call it an anchor for the secure, an island for the avoidant, and a wave for the anxious. And I think that really does describe, without a hierarchy or one's better than another, that this is just the tendency towards how we're going to respond in relationship.
Yeah, and you know what? There's other things going on in our life too, meaning that sometimes we're here to do something in the world, and relationship really is a secondary thing. Mm-hmm. And I see that so much where the chart is set up perfectly for that person to channel 99% of their energy into their dharma in the world. Mm-hmm. And otherwise, they could be really distracted from what they're here to do. Yeah. You know, trying to make relationships work when it's really not the main focus of their life. And that's a really good thing to know. Mm-hmm. Sometimes. And to see it, instead of seeing it as, oh, I'm hopeless at relationships, it's more like, oh, I'm here to do other things, and relationship is not my main focus. And that's okay.
And with this person, one of the things that they can also be working on is learning how to be happy no matter what. Learning how to really tap into that internal source of just happiness and trying to tap into that. Because once they find that, they will have more of that coming through in their relationships. They'll have more of that, you know, just bubbling over with happiness no matter what's going on externally. Yeah. And that will attract to them a different kind of partner.
Yeah, exactly. And when the Atmakaraka is in the sign of Pisces here, the main thing that you're here to do basically is to grow spiritually. And it shows that you will grow tremendously spiritually this lifetime. It's the guarantee. Yeah. And it's really, because it's in a feminine sign, it's more about being receptive to the divine, receptive to your own spiritual nature. Mm-hmm. Like, you don't really have to strive real hard for it. It's just a matter of being available. Mm-hmm. So in other words, even if you might be a bit avoidant in your relationships with humans, try not to be avoidant in your relationship with the divine or with yourself, because it'll go around in a circle and help you to get, you know, have better relationships with humans, which is just another way of saying what Channing just said. So, okay. Yeah, we could go on and on, really. There's more to say. We haven't looked at anything else, and there's a ton more stuff. So this is what we've got for you today on this. So once again, if you want to contact Channing, you can find her. There'll be below, look down below, there's a link. Mm-hmm. You can find her through Asheville Vedic Astrology, and I am Divine Time Astrology. And again, educate yourself on the attachment theory. I have to say it's been revolutionary in my life. And I have someone to practice with. Mm-hmm. Right now, I've got lucky and I get someone to practice with. Mm-hmm. The more you learn about it, the more naturally your relationships will get closer and better. Mm-hmm. And you'll be more open to having relationship, including the avoidance or the islands among us. You know, it's just a protective thing, and it's a survival thing. And after a while, you won't need to do that so much. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say in closing?
I'm just looking forward to hearing what other people's experiences are with this. When, as they're learning about it, go ahead and put some comments down there and let us know how this is connected with your life. And we're open. I'm open to looking at more charts. We might not get to all of them online. We might not be able to do a video for all of them, but it's still helpful for our research to be able to identify how these things can present themselves in the chart and in the stars.
Yeah, exactly. So if you like this video, hit the like button and subscribe, because we're going to be doing more of these. And I want to thank you, Channing, for coming on my channel again today. I so appreciate it. It's real fun working with you. It's really fun doing a chart together. Isn't it? It's like we mark off each other, and yeah, some of the things you say make me think of something and vice versa. And
yeah.
It would be real fun and to get a reading from 2 astrologers at one time.
We'll do that someday.
Yeah. Okay, so until next time, goodbye.